Oh, hey there, friends. It's Nick. It's the ASMR nerd. And today we're going to be talking about video games. Video games. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the games that are coming out this year that I am most excited for. One might call them my top 10 most anticipated games of 2024. It's going to be a good old-fashioned, soft-spoken video game ramble. It's been a while since I've done one of these, so it's about time. But before we dive into that, there's something else I want to tell you about. And that is my number one most anticipated t-shirt of 2024. And this is really, really easy. You know why? Because it is whatever t-shirt is coming next from this video's sponsor, Into the AM. Into the AM are sellers of elevated everyday apparel. They have all kinds of amazing clothes that look great and feel great on your body. Today I've got this beautiful, colorful, badass t-shirt with this, I don't know, ninja geisha, assassin geisha, which is just one of so many different designs Into the AM has, and every single one of them is killer. All killer, no filler. They're all bangers. And they're coming out with new designs all the time, which is why I'm always excited for what they're putting out next. Not only do their graphic tees look incredible, they also feel incredible. They're nice and soft. They're a little bit stretchy. They're nicely fitted, really flattering cut. And even though it's like really cold out right now, it's like exceptionally cold for this part of the world, I'm still rocking their tees because they're just that good. I love wearing them even in the middle of the winter. The good news is you don't have to wear their tees in the middle of the winter if you want something warmer, because Into the AM has you covered for all kinds of other clothing as well. They got long sleeve tees, they got sweats and joggers, they've got hoodies, they've got outerwear jackets, they got beanies, they got all kinds of stuff for you to put on your body to look and feel great. And not only that, but you can save some money if you bundle up. Like, not physically, I mean, you can do that too, but if you bundle their graphic tees 3 together or 6 together, you get massive savings. And I have even better news for you. You can save an additional 10% of your entire order. 10%, that's a single percent for every one of the games that I'm going to talk about in today's video. 10% of your entire order using the link down below at the top of the video description. And if you do so, you will also be supporting me and this channel, which, hey, it means a lot to me. So thank you if you choose to do that. It's really a win-win. You save some money, you support this channel, and Into the AM is happy to have you with them as well, wearing their sweet stuff. So once again, check out that link down below at the top of the video description. See what kinds of amazing, beautiful, elevated, everyday apparel Into the AM has for you. And save 10% of your whole order. Big thanks to Into the AM for supporting today's video. And now that I've told you about my number one most anticipated t-shirt, let's move on to the games. The games. So I'm going to do this in reverse order, as is tradition. This is becoming an annual tradition. I think I've done this video in January for maybe 3 or 4 years running now, at least. Maybe more. Could be more. I don't remember. But yeah, I like to do it in reverse order. And the order's pretty arbitrary, of course. And these are all upcoming games, so it's kind of hard to know how they're going to turn out. This is just based on, what kind of pre-release information is out there and my personal preferences. So don't take any of it too very seriously. But and I have to admit, when I started thinking about my lists for this year's video, I had a bit of a hard time fleshing it out initially, at least initially. 2023 was such a stacked year for video games. Like one of the most incredible in recent memory in terms of huge, tentpole releases, blockbusters, and some surprise hits as well. There are just, so many amazing games that came out in 2023. And of course, I'm going to be working my way through those for literally years to come, probably. Because that's just how I am. I'm not very quick about beating games, to say the least. But there's still room to be excited about games announced for 2024. And once I dove into it and I started looking up some lists of games, announced for release this year, I was able to flesh it out pretty good. My memory was jogged, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, there is some pretty cool stuff planned. But I still do feel like maybe there are fewer games that have been announced for this year, like at this point in January, and then there were in previous years. Somehow it just feels like fewer. And of course, games are all subject to, being delayed as well. Seems to be almost the rule rather than the exception these days. So, whatever. It's all in good fun. So, let's dive in at number 10. My number 10 most anticipated game of 2024 is Tales of the Shire. Tales of the Shire. This one, I went back and forth on whether it should be on my list because we know so little about this game right now. All we have is the shortest of little announcement teaser trailers. But you know what? That's enough for me because Tales of the Shire purports to be a cozy game where you get to live your best life as a hobbit in the Shire. Beyond that, we really don't know what it's going to, entail. But it's being developed by Weta Workshop, so it's closely associated with, the Peter Jackson films in that sense, I guess. And just the very concept of like a farming life sim set in the Shire is pretty close to everything I've ever wanted. I just want to build my hobbit hole under a hill, and I want to grow and tend to my garden, and I want to smoke my pipe weed, and I want to go down to the Green Dragon for a pint with the boys, and I want to romance Rosie Cotton. That's all I've ever wanted. Sorry, Sam. But seriously, like, a Stardew Valley or Animal Crossing style game set in, the Shire just sounds incredible. So, sight unseen with no other information, Tales of the Shire takes my number 10 spot on this year's list. It's announced for release this year. Beyond that, no further information. It looks like it's coming out on all current gen platforms and last gen platforms, except for Switch, which is strange because the Switch seems like a perfect spot for a game like that. Maybe that'll change. Who knows? I hope so. Coming in at number 9, we have a Star Wars game, but it's probably not the Star Wars game that you're thinking of, because there are actually 2 Star Wars games on my list this year. Coming in at number 9 is Star Wars Dark Forces Remaster. And I also kind of went back and forth on whether this game should be allowed on the list because it's not technically a new game, it's a remastered old game. But Dark Forces was a seminal game in the Star Wars game pantheon. It was a first person shooter, came out, I want to say 95 maybe, and it was kind of a Doom like. Obviously, Doom was the hotness at the time, and this was a Star Wars take on that, but it added some fresh new stuff like vertical aiming and mouse look and that kind of thing. And anyway, it led to an amazing series of games. We had Dark Forces, the first one, and then in 1997 we had Dark Forces 2, Jedi Knight, and then it dropped the Dark Forces name and just became the Jedi Knight series. Then we got Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast in 01, no, 02, I don't know, somewhere in there. And then Jedi Knight 3, Jedi Academy in, I want to say 03 or 04, somewhere in that range. And all of those games were spectacular. And the original Dark Forces is actually the odd one out in that you did not get a lightsaber. It was a pretty by-the-books shooter. What one might call a boomer shooter these days, I guess. As much as I hate the title. But it had its own thing going on, and it had some very large outdoor areas that were really cool for the time, and it was just a good time. I never actually played all the way through. I played quite a bit of it back in the day, but I don't think I ever finished it. And so it is being remastered by Night Dive Studios. Night Dive, you might have heard of them. They've done some excellent work with remasters lately. They did that System Shock remake that came out last year that was quite well received. They've done, I think they did a Quake 2 remaster. They've done a bunch of stuff. They're quite accomplished at remastering 90s games. And so I think Dark Forces is in good hands with Night Dive. And it's great that they are, updating it, bringing it forward for a new generation to enjoy, especially considering the rise of boomer shooters, again, the resurgence in their popularity. And I must admit that as much as I am looking forward to playing the Dark Forces remaster, I'm potentially more excited about it leading to more remasters in the series, because Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight was my freaking jam. I love that game so much back in the day, and it was legitimately a really good game. And I think with a fresh coat of paint on it, if they gave that game like the System Shock treatment, like what they did with the System Shock remaster, I think it would be phenomenal. I think it would hold up extremely well. And I would be so excited for that. There is actually a guy, just a modder, independent dude, who is rebuilding that game in Unreal 4. And so far he's put out, I think, 3 levels. There's maybe 20 in the original game. But a really impressive effort for a solo modder. And so I have enjoyed a remastered version of a couple levels of that game, but it would be really cool to see the whole thing remastered in an official capacity. So, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. I hope that the Dark Forces 1 remaster is well done, and I hope that it is well received, so then perhaps one day it might lead to Dark Forces 2, Jedi Knight, and then Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy remasters as well, because they definitely deserve it. To this day, no other games have done lightsaber combat as well as, well, especially those last two, Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy. But yeah, Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight was definitely my jam. And as a matter of fact, I don't know if you can see back there, but I have a collector's edition of the re-release version from Limited Run Games, and there is a video on this very channel where you can see me unbox that. It was a really neat collector's edition that they did. So, all right, moving on to number 8 on my list. This was a late edition, late 8, and it is Black Myth Wukong. Black Myth Wukong. This is an absolutely bonkers looking game. It looks so good. Like the graphics, the scale, the creature designs, they look unreal. Like literally, it's being built in Unreal Engine 5. But just the like artistic chops and technical chops on display are amazing. So this game is being developed by a Chinese studio called Game Science. Game Science. This is the first game from them I've ever heard of. Maybe it is their first game, I'm not sure. But it's based off of the Journey to the West novels, which, or novel, singular, maybe? I've never read it, I don't know. But it's a classic tale from China, and it covers all kinds of myths and legends, is my understanding. And that is on full display in what they've shown from Black Myth Wukong. Because, yeah, just the fantastical landscapes, the absolutely wild looking creature designs, everything looks crazy. It just looks super cool. I don't know much more about this game other than the fact that it looks insane, if I'm being totally honest. It appears to be some kind of a third-person action RPG, perhaps. I don't know if it's open world. I don't think it is. I think it might be a little more Souls-like, but I could be mistaken about that as well. All I know is the trailers that I've seen from it, which admittedly don't show much in the way of gameplay, have absolutely dazzled me. So, really hoping that thing comes out. It is good. I'm ready to be surprised by something from this relatively unknown studio. And I hope they do the source material justice as well. That is scheduled for August 20th, 2024. It's coming out on current gen platforms, the Xbox Series, PS5, and PC. Oh, and I didn't mention it, but the Dark Forces remake coming out pretty soon, actually, February 28th. So not long to wait for that, and it's coming to everything, pretty much, current gen and last gen as well. Moving forward, at number 7, Dragon's Dogma 2. Now, this game might have been higher on my list if I had played the original Dragon's Dogma. But I did not. I do own it. I've just never actually played it. But it was a bit of a cult classic to my understanding. Developed by Capcom, as is this sequel. And Capcom's been firing on all cylinders lately. So I think we have good reason to believe that Dragon's Dogma 2 is going to be coming out in fine shape. And it looks like an intriguing setting. I am a sucker for medieval fantasy RPGs, especially open world ones, with lots of magic and swords and sorcery and all that kind of stuff. People say great things about the pawn system from the first game, which I gather is returning in the second one. And what I've seen of the gameplay and the setting just looks really interesting. You know, it's got that kind of very D&D-ish fantasy look to it, but with a little bit of something else, you know, a slightly JRPG twist to it, which I think is always kind of a fun combination. So definitely keeping an eye on that, and if it reviews well, I'll probably pick it up and check it out. That's coming out March 22nd, and it's coming to all current gen platforms. Coming in at number six, I have Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. This is a game that we've seen demoed for quite a few years now. I believe it was one of the first games that Microsoft trotted out there to show off the power of the Series X. And it is, of course, a sequel to Senua's Sacrifice, which was a really unique game. Somewhat flawed, I would say, but still really, really cool. I love what that game did artistically. I love what that game did in terms of grappling with themes of mental illness and tragedy. And it was beautifully presented and beautifully acted by the actress who plays Senua. I forget her name now, Melina something, I think. But and Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 looks like it's just gonna crank all that up to like 11 and then some. The footage they've showed for this game is like insane. Like, I was gonna say Unreal again, and I think it actually is Unreal again. I think it's running on Unreal Engine 5. But I remember, you know, a lot of the early trailers that they put out for this thing, people were saying there's no way that's in engine. But it seems to be the case that it is and was. And it definitely looks like they're expanding on the combat, which I will admit was one of the weaker points of the original, I thought. And hopefully the puzzle solving and traversal and stuff is a little bit more straightforward. Maybe straightforward's the wrong word, but I found some of that got a bit tiresome in the first one. Even though I did never finish the first one either. I'm so bad for finishing games, you guys. And it wasn't a terribly long game either, I don't think. But anyway, but I enjoyed the time I did spend with it, and it was such a trip in terms of the way they portrayed her psychosis is the right term, but her mental illness that she was struggling with, her being Senua, and her guilt, and also the sound design is really worth calling out because they did some amazing stuff with HRTFs and like binaural sound. When you get those whispers of doubt and things like that, and they come from all around. They come from this side and that side, and that's definitely going to be present in Hellblade 2 if the trailers are to be taken as any indication. So anyway, I think that's going to be something special when it hits. That's being developed by Ninja Theory. It has been in development for quite some time now and is scheduled for sometime this year. Who knows? Sometime this year, so they say. And that's coming out on Microsoft platforms exclusively. The Xboxes, the Series, and Windows. Coming in at number 5 is another game that was a somewhat later addition to this list, but after watching some more trailers recently, it moved up into this fairly lofty spot. Well, I guess middle of the pack, but and that game's called Banishers: Ghosts of New Eden. Banishers: Ghosts of New Eden. This game I first saw demoed last summer, and it caught my eye. For one, it's from a studio called Don't Nod, who are well known for the Life is Strange games, which are broadly quite well received, as well as I think more recently Jusant as well, which was also quite well received. And actually, I really want to check it out. I think it could be really neat for maybe some relaxing gameplay, actually. But Banishers: Ghosts of New Eden is a very different looking kind of thing. It is billed as a third-person action RPG set in the haunted wilds of late 1600s North America, which right there, okay, you've got me. That sounds really cool. But what seems really neat about it is the focus on the characterization of the main protagonists, and how story driven it seems to be. And from watching some trailers, just how compelling the performances and the writing look to be as well. The gist of it is that you play as a pair of banishers who are essentially ghost hunters, I guess, whose job it is to find lingering spirits and banish them from the mortal realm, either to, ascend or to eternal torment. And there's definitely a twist to it, which it's revealed in the pre-release content for the game. So, because it's a fairly important mechanic, if you're really, really sensitive to spoilers, maybe don't listen to the next 30 seconds or so. But it's widely known knowledge. But basically, your ghost hunters are romantically involved, but one of them dies early on in the game in a banishing job gone wrong, I guess. And so you have one mortal ghost hunter and one ethereal phantasm ghost hunter, and you're switching between them to traverse environments and access new things, but also in combat. They each have different skills and abilities and different skill trees and such. And of course, that plays into the story because, a ghost hunter that's also a ghost that needs banishing, presumably. But, this mortal that really wants to cling to his love, and, to what lengths will you go to, try and bring back the one you love, or, anyway, I don't know. It just sounds like a really interesting hook, and what I've seen looks really neat. And the good news is we don't have long to wait for that. It's coming out on February 13th, so that's like a month away or so as of the time of recording. And I really hope it's good. It's always nice to see a new IP. So many of these are sequels or remakes, or part of a big IP like Star Wars or whatever. So it's cool to see Don't Nod coming out with something that feels fresh and looks super interesting. So very excited for that. And that's coming out to current gen consoles and PC. Coming in at number 4. This was an easy one for me. Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. what more do you need to know other than you play giant stompy space marines and you murder the ever-loving crap out of hordes and hordes of tyranids. You become a Cuisinart of death against the swarm, and I have a soft spot for 40k. I played a bunch of it back in the day. I collected NIDs, my army. I played Tyranids. And yeah, so that just looked like a great time. I also played the original Space Marine back in the day, which was it was a surprise hit in that I don't think anyone saw it coming, really. It was from Relic, I think. The original was developed by Relic, pretty sure. But the sequel here is being developed by Saber Interactive, who have a very long list of games to their name. Very extensive resume. Some, really exceptional. Some maybe a little more middling, but I hope they knock it out of the park with this one. I just want to live out my Space Marine fantasies and just destroy massive swarms of alien bugs. That's all I really need. Maybe a little bit of, high-minded talk about, heresy and piety and purge the heretic and that sort of thing. Although, again, I guess it's more purge the Xenos, I guess, in this case. But yeah, it looks like a grand old time. And what they showed of it looks kinetic and gory and over the top in all the ways you want it to be. That first game definitely had a really great weight to it. You are a big stompy Space Marine, and it was a product of its time, which is to say it was pretty, third person Xbox 360 era, kind of linear, over the shouldery kind of thing, very Gears of War-ish, but more melee, I guess. I don't know, I didn't play the Gears of War games. But, well, that's not true. Actually, I did play Gears of War 2 with my buddy. But anyway, doesn't matter. Point is, Space Marine 2, bring it on. Let's kill some nids. That's coming out September 9th, 2024 on current gen consoles. All right, well, here we are. We've cracked the top 3. Coming in at number 3, and I did go back and forth on whether this could have swapped with Space Marine 2. I actually did have it swapped at one point, but coming in at number 3 is a Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. This is the follow-up to Microsoft Flight Simulator, the one that came out 2020, is that right? 2021? Sometime in the last few years. It's 2022, actually? I don't remember. Anyway, what is time anymore? All that, COVID pandemic time just kind of just out the window. But Flight Simulator was a technical, and is a technical marvel. Asobo Studio did such an incredible job of literally bringing the entire world to your fingertips at an unprecedented degree of fidelity, but also making it fairly accessible for people who are not hardcore into flight sims. That's me. I've played flight sims in the past, but I am not a pilot by any stretch. I just play Microsoft Flight Simulator on my 360 controller most of the time. I do have a stick and throttle HOTAS setup that I occasionally use, but honestly, most of the time I just kick back, play it on my controller, and it's really cool because it's gorgeous and it's amazing to see the world from the sky, and there is a joy to just getting in a plane and flying, right? But what the current version lacks is any kind of career mode or progression or like goals of any kind for the most part. It does have like landing challenges and um, like what do they call it? Like aerial tour kind of stuff. But so there's a little bit there, but it really doesn't have much in the way of like a carrot on the stick to kind of, you know, have you learning and advancing and progressing through. So most of it is very like self-driven, self-motivated. And sometimes I find myself wishing there was more of like a game built into it rather than just this really cool, amazing sandbox. And Flight Sim 2024 looks like it's going to bring the game to Flight Sim. It's going to have what appears to be a pretty extensive career mode with like dozens of different kinds of missions that you fly, from like search and rescue stuff to like cargo deliveries to like VIP tours and all kinds of stuff. And I'm hoping that it has a good progression to it where, you know, you get a chance to, you know, build up your skills, build up your stable of aircraft, and become more capable as a pilot. That's what it seems to be offering. So I'm really glad that they're finally bringing that. And I think that's going to take a game that's already freaking cool as heck and just elevate it to something that's like even more compulsively playable and interesting. At least I sure hope so. So that's at number 3 on my list. No specific date announced for that, just sometime this year. And it's coming, of course, to Microsoft platforms, Xboxes, and Windows. Coming in at number 2. This might not be a surprise to those of you who have listened to these kinds of lists from me before. Perhaps if you watched my top games of the E3 season last year, this will not be a surprise. But number 2 is Avowed. Avowed. This is a brand new action RPG coming from the RPG masters at Obsidian Entertainment. Obsidian Entertainment. And it is set in the world of Eora, which is the setting for the Pillars of Eternity games. But this is a first-person action RPG. And it looks pretty heavy on the action. The emphasis definitely seems to be on the action. Avowed began life as Obsidian's take on the Elder Scrolls games, which of course is an extremely intriguing pitch for me. But it looks like over its development, it morphed into something a bit smaller in scope and a bit more focused. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think Obsidian's great strength, well, they have numerous, but their world building and their writing are typically excellent. And if they can bring those to bear by keeping the game more focused, then I think that is really compelling. So that is scheduled to come out sometime this year. Once again, on Microsoft platforms. Obsidian is owned by Microsoft these days. And yeah, what they've shown of the combat, of the story stuff, of the setting, all looks really, really, really good. I will say I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of the like art style they've got going on for it. Like I think it looks good, but like I don't know, but the impression in my mind is that it's like weirdly too colorful. If that makes sense. That's probably not true though. For some reason though, that's just in my mind's eye, it's like very colorful. But you know, I'm certainly not going to let that hold me back from trying it out. That's definitely going to be a day one purchase, I think, unless it reviews disastrously and is a technical mess or something. But I doubt it. I doubt it. I think it'll come out fairly solid, and I'll probably pick that up right away. So that is Avowed from Obsidian Entertainment. Definitely looking forward to that. My number one most anticipated game of 2024 that has been announced so far. Obviously, there will be more games announced, but as of mid-January, you can probably guess. I kind of hinted at it earlier because I said there are 2 Star Wars games on this list. Those keeping track will have noticed I've only talked about one so far. So my number one most anticipated game of the year is Star Wars Outlaws. Star Wars Outlaws. Again, no big surprise if you saw my list from last summer. This is a third-person action adventure open world extravaganza set in the Star Wars universe between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Excellent choice. Original trilogy era. Fantastic. From Massive Entertainment. And they have the Division games, but also, most recently, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. And everything they've showed of Star Wars Outlaws looks really good. Like, I keep being impressed by what they're showing. And I don't want to set my expectations too high, but, it looks like they're really throwing the kitchen sink into this thing. There's a lot going on. They've got, of course, third-person action combat and shooting and stealth gameplay and puzzle solving and speeder bike chases and cinematic conversations with dialogue choices, open world traversal and design, but also space combat and just all kinds of stuff, and it's very like story driven looking kind of approach. So it just looks quite extensive, and I have been wanting like a big meaty cinematic Star Wars game like this. Well, Star Wars RPG like this, I guess, is maybe the key for quite some time. And I don't even know that this is necessarily, I guess an RPG is probably a mischaracterization, because I think it is a little bit more like a typical Ubisoft game, skill tree and whatnot is my understanding. But a lot of those games do kind of verge on RPG like, especially when you have dialogue choices. And I guess, in contrast to something like, well, I was going to say in contrast to, Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, but actually, those games have cosmetics and skill trees and stuff as well, and sort of semi-open-ish setting, at least in Survivor. Whatever. I don't know what even are genres these days. I feel like everything, like so many games have a little bit of RPG in them. It doesn't matter. The point is, Star Wars Outlaws is looking really cool, and I am extremely looking forward to it. It is exactly the time period and setting that I love. It's the kind of game that I really enjoy, so bring it on. And I was going to say, Massive just recently put out Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. It got kind of mixed reception. Generally, people thought it was competent, if not super exciting. I think people who are very burnt out on the Ubisoft, Far Cry, formula. Found it pretty tiresome. I haven't played a Far Cry game for quite some time. I kind of like the open worlds, icon barf, like collectathon. I don't know. I don't play them that often, so when I do, it's fun. And like I have enjoyed the recent Assassin's Creed games, though granted I did not play Valhalla very much. But I think I am less burnt out on that style of game than many folks. And so I've actually been quite enjoying Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. I think it's a really good one of those. It's also beautiful. Like, it's just stunningly gorgeous. It is the best looking game of last year, in my opinion. And so, I mean, my take is that Massive did a good job with that. And so I'm really excited to see what they can bring with Star Wars Outlaws. And that is coming out sometime in 2024. No specific release date announced yet for current gen consoles and PC. And that is my list. I hope you liked it. I would be very curious to hear what your list looks like. You don't have to give me your top 10. It's a lot, even if it's just your top 5 or 3. Let me know down in the comments. I'd be really curious to know if there's some overlap with mine, or if there's some games on my list that you were like, oh, I didn't know about that. Now that's on my list. Or if there's some games where you're like, Nick, what are you smoking? What is that doing there? Whatever it is, I'd like to hear about it down in the comments. So feel free to let me know. There are some other things I thought about throwing on here, but I don't think quite fit the spirit of the list. Like, I think Hades 2 is coming out in early access this year. So is that Victorian steampunk fantasy survival game called Nightingale. Both of those look great, but I think they're just early access this year. And of course, we're supposed to be getting the Elden Ring DLC Shadows of the Erd Tree coming out at some point this year. But again, DLC, not really standalone game, so I felt it didn't really fit the spirit of the list. And there's lots of other games and things as well. I did have to make a few cuts as well, ultimately. But anyway, like I said, I'd love to hear what you think, what you're looking forward to in 2024. So leave that comment and let me know. And while you're down there, check out that link to this video's sponsor, Into the AM. I promise you will freaking love what they've got going on over there. So many cool designs. You will certainly find something that you love. So check it out. Get yourself some sweet, comfortable, beautiful new duds, and save some money and support the channel while you're at it. Big shout out to Into the AM once again for their ongoing and very awesome support of the channel and what we have here. And the same to you, my friends, to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this interesting, but most of all, I hope you found it relaxing. And I look very forward to having you back here next time. Farewell for now, my friends. Now, y'all know that I really appreciate this channel's sponsor, Into the AM. I mean, I just finished saying as much. But what you might not know, if you don't make it to this part of the video regularly anyway, is that I appreciate these folks right here even more. That's how much I love these amazing individuals, even more than I love Into the AM. That's because these fine individuals here are this channel's supporters on Patreon and YouTube memberships. They kindly support the content that I create here. They give me the freedom to create exactly what I want to make without having to worry about, chasing a bunch of sponsorship dollars or the vagaries of YouTube ad revenue and whatnot. They help me create the kind of content that I love to make the most and that you hopefully enjoy watching the most as well. And if you enjoy the content that I make, if you have ever derived any relaxation from it and would like to support more of that kind of content, then please consider taking a look at the links down below at the top of the video description. There you will find links to my Patreon and my YouTube memberships. Both of them offer the same perks, so it's whichever is your preference. And there you will find 3 different tiers, and I'm sure you will find one that is right for you. At the Foos tier, those supporters get this credit that you see right here and early access to my weekend videos. At the Foos Row tier, those folks get to vote each month in a special poll where they select one of the video topics for a video on my channel that month. And at the Foos Row tier, those very special folks get a special spoken shout out, a thank you in every single video. And you are about to hear the names of our Foos Row tier supporters for this video. It's my great honor to read them out to you, starting with Ragnar Ragnarsson, K Time, Odin's Son, Drummer Brit, Rango Steel, and the indomitable, last but never least, Jake Luffney. Absolute superstars, those individuals. Incredible folks. I appreciate their support so very, very much. And the same goes for everybody here on this page. And once again, dear viewer or listener, you could be amongst this esteemed company. All you have to do is go check out those links down below at the top of the video description and sign up at a tier that is right for you. Once again, a huge, warm thank you to this channel's amazing supporters.